"Stop being such a leech and get a job," my daughter-in-law, Chloe, screeched from across the dinner table, her finger pointed directly at me. The entire room went still. My son, Leo, looked like he wanted to crawl under the table and die. I, however, just smiled, a perfect picture of calm. I took a slow sip of the cheap, acidic wine she'd served and thought about the $15 million tech company I owned. This would be the last dinner she ever treated me like dirt. From that moment on, I had one single mission: to show everyone in excruciating detail exactly who the real parasite in this family was. But before I continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love to know how far our stories travel. My name is Eleanor Vance, and at 65 years old, I've been living a double life for the past 3 years. After my husband Richard passed away, I decided to conduct a little social experiment on my own family. I started dressing in simple, modest clothing. I moved into a tiny apartment in a working-class neighborhood, and I let everyone believe that I'd lost everything when Richard died. The truth? I was the CEO and founder of Apex Innovations, a software firm valued at a cool $15 million. Richard and I had built this empire from the ground up, and with his passing, it all fell to me. But nobody knew that, not even my only son, Leo. Why the charade? Because I needed to know who truly cared about me when they thought I had nothing left to offer. Who would love me when they believed I was ruined? It was a cruel test, perhaps, but a necessary one for someone who had spent her entire life surrounded by people with vested interests. In the first few months after the funeral, I was stunned by how quickly my phone stopped ringing. The old friends from the golf club vanished. The distant relatives who always showed up for Sunday dinners stopped visiting. I was prepared for that. What I wasn't prepared for was the transformation of Chloe, Leo's wife of 5 years. For the first couple of months, she was attentive. She'd bring me food occasionally, ask if I needed anything. But as soon as she realized there would be no $1 million inheritance to share, the mask slipped. The visits from Leo and Chloe became rarer. When I did go to their house for dinner, I could feel Chloe's resentful stares every time I mentioned some financial difficulty. The birthday gifts became cheaper and more impersonal each year. And the comments? Oh, the comments. "Ellie, that sweater looks so worn out. Don't you have anything better to wear? You should get your hair cut at that cheaper salon on the corner. Why don't you just sell those few pieces of jewelry you have left and pay your bills?" I swallowed every veiled insult, every condescending suggestion. I watched and took mental notes, silently building my case against her. That night, the night of Leo's birthday dinner, things finally reached a boiling point. It was a simple dinner at their house. Chloe had made her specialty dish, a roasted chicken that I recognized from the prepared foods section at the local supermarket. I was sitting at the table with Leo, Chloe, and her parents, the Fosters, a pretentious couple who always made sure to mention their summer in the Hamptons or their new German car. The conversation revolved around Chloe's success with her small online home decor boutique, an enterprise financed entirely by Leo's salary as a marketing manager. She spoke as if she had single-handedly built an empire. "And I'm thinking of opening a brick-and-mortar store next year," Chloe said, pouring herself more wine. "Business is really taking off." "That's wonderful, dear," I commented, genuinely happy for her success, despite everything. "Well, that's what happens when you work hard instead of just waiting for others to solve your problems," she shot back, looking directly at me. Leo choked on his drink. "Chloe, please." "What?" "Everyone's thinking it," Chloe continued, her voice rising. "Your mother has been living in that tiny apartment for 3 years, complaining about how hard it is to pay the bills, and she hasn't done a single thing to improve her situation." "My situation is complicated, Chloe," I replied calmly. "Complicated? For God's sake, you're 65, not 95. Half the people your age are still working. You could get a job anywhere. A sales clerk, a receptionist, anything." The silence at the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. The Fosters looked uncomfortable, but said nothing to defend me. Leo stared intently at his plate, just as he always did when his wife attacked me. "Maybe you're right," I replied softly. "Maybe I should be more proactive." "Proactive? You should stop being a leech and get a job, or get out of our lives." It was then that something inside me finally snapped. 3 years of watching this woman treat me like a burden, an embarrassment, a problem to be solved. 3 years of watching my own son, a man I raised to be strong and have integrity, become a submissive shadow next to this manipulative woman. I placed my fork down calmly next to my plate. I folded my napkin and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the same smile I gave my competitors right before I dismantled them in a negotiation. "Chloe," I said slowly, "you really have no idea who I am, do you?" She rolled her eyes. A dramatic widow who refuses to move on and prefers to be a burden to her own son. "No, my dear. I'm someone you really shouldn't have made an enemy of." "Is that a threat?" she asked with a mocking laugh. "No, it's a promise." I stood up from the table. "Leo, thank you for dinner. I'll call you tomorrow. We have a lot to talk about." I walked out calmly, leaving them to deal with the awkward silence that followed. As I walked back to my little apartment, I felt a mixture of sadness and fierce determination. The charade was about to end, and the real Eleanor was ready to come back. At home, I took off my modest clothes and put on one of the many designer suits I kept hidden in a secret compartment in the closet. I sat at my small table, fired up my laptop, and accessed the bank accounts and financial reports I had been religiously reviewing every night, far from everyone's eyes. Apex Innovations wasn't just successful, it was thriving. Under my remote and discreet direction, our stocks had risen 30% in the last year. Our new security software had been acquired by 3 Fortune 500 companies. We had offices in 4 countries. And all of this was about to become Chloe's personal nightmare. I poured myself a glass of real wine, not the cheap stuff I drank at her house, but an expensive Napa Cabernet I saved for special occasions. This was definitely a special occasion. It was the beginning of the end of Chloe's reign of terror over my life and my son's. I picked up my phone and sent a message to my executive assistant, Marcus, who had kept my secret for 3 long years. "Marcus, it's time. Put the plan into action." He replied immediately. "Understood. Everything is ready for tomorrow morning." I smiled, thinking of the shock Chloe would have when she discovered the truth, when she realized that the leech she so despised was, in fact, one of the most powerful women in the tech sector. But first, I needed to have an honest conversation with my son, a conversation that was 3 years overdue. The call came at 7:30 the next morning, exactly as I had planned. Leo sounded nervous, his voice trembling on the other end of the line. "Mom, we need to talk about last night." "Yes, we do," I replied, my voice steady and calm, "but not over the phone." "Can we meet for breakfast? Alone?" There was a pause. I could almost hear his hesitation, probably worried about what Chloe would say. That broke my heart a little more. "Sure," he finally agreed. "The coffee shop on the corner of your street in half an hour?" "No," I said firmly. "Meet me at the Astoria Grand on Park Avenue in 1 hour." "The Astoria Grand? That 5-star hotel?" "Mom, that place is ridiculously expensive." "My treat. And dress well. It's important." I hung up before he could protest. Then I called Marcus. "Is everything ready in the conference suite?" "Yes, Mrs. Vance. The documents are in the blue folder as you requested. Mr. Ruiz will arrive at 9:30. Excellent. And the breakfast reservation? The most discreet table in the restaurant, as you asked." "Perfect." I dressed with meticulous care that morning. None of the faded cardigans or polyester pants I had worn for the last 3 years. Instead, I chose a navy blue silk suit, Italian leather shoes, and the pearls Richard had given me for our 30th wedding anniversary. I applied my makeup carefully, styled my silver hair into an elegant chignon. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the frail widow I had been playing for so long. I saw the woman I'd always been, determined, powerful, a force to be reckoned with. I arrived at the Astoria Grand 15 minutes early. The concierge recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Vance, what a pleasure to see you again. It's been too long." "Thank you, Santiago. It's good to be back." I headed to the restaurant, where I was greeted by the maitre d' with the same deference. I sat at the reserved table overlooking the gardens and ordered a coffee. Leo arrived right on time, wearing his one good suit, the one he'd bought for his father's funeral. I could see the surprise on his face as he walked into the elegant restaurant and was guided to my table. His eyes widened even more when he saw me. "Mom, you look different." "Sit down, Leo," I said, gesturing to the chair opposite me. He obeyed, visibly confused. "What's going on? Why are we here? And how are you? Those clothes—" "Leo," I interrupted gently, "what do you know about the work your father and I did?" He frowned. The question clearly caught him off guard. "Well, Dad was an executive at some tech company. You were a consultant, right? Something to do with software." I smiled sadly. It was exactly what we had wanted him to think. Richard and I always kept our professional life separate from our personal one. We didn't want Leo to grow up as the rich kid. We wanted him to build his own path. "Not exactly," I replied. "Your father and I founded Apex Innovations 35 years ago. We started in our basement, remember? You used to play under the table while we worked on those first lines of code." Leo nodded slowly, the memory returning. "I remember it vaguely, but I thought you sold that little company years ago." "No, son. We turned it into a corporation valued at $15 million, with over 200 employees in 4 countries. The fork he was holding clattered onto his plate. His eyes, so much like his father's, were wide with shock. "What? But when Dad died, you moved into that tiny apartment. Your clothes. You said we barely had any money." I took a sip of my coffee, feeling the weight of 3 years of lies between us. "I never said that exactly. I let you assume it. And you, along with Chloe, assumed." He paled at the mention of his wife's name. "Chloe doesn't know?" "No. No one knows, except a very small circle of trusted executives. Why, Mom? Why this whole charade?" I put my cup down and looked directly into my son's eyes. Because I wanted to know who truly loved me, Leo, who would stand by my side when they thought I had nothing to offer. The pain in his eyes was palpable. "You were testing us?" "Yes," I admitted softly. "After your father died, I realized how much of our social life was based on our status and money. People sought us out because we were useful, not because they loved us. I needed to know who would remain when all of that disappeared." Leo looked away, and I could see the shame on his face. He knew he had failed the test. Not completely, but enough for it to hurt. "And Chloe?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. I took a deep breath. This was the hard part. "Leo, after last night's dinner, I'm afraid I no longer have any doubts about your wife. She sees me as a burden, an embarrassment. This has been clear over the past 3 years, but last night she finally showed her true colors in front of everyone." Tears welled up in his eyes. "She's not always like that, Mom. She's under a lot of pressure with the boutique, with the debts." "Debts?" I interrupted. "What debts, Leo?" He hesitated. Then he let out a slow breath. We're in trouble. The boutique isn't doing as well as she makes it seem. We have credit card debt, the loan for the business. We're not sinking, but it's getting difficult. This explains so much. Chloe's growing hostility, the frustration directed at me. She probably thought she'd married a man whose parents would leave him a substantial inheritance, and instead she ended up with a husband on a modest salary and a seemingly destitute mother-in-law. "Leo, there's something else you need to know." "What?" he asked, clearly apprehensive. "After your father died, I made a decision. I made you the beneficiary of 30% of the company's shares in my will, but with one condition." "What condition?" "That you would never know about it while I was alive. unless I determined it was time for you to know. His eyes widened. And you've decided now is the time. Yes, the documents are in a conference suite here at the hotel. My lawyer will be here soon to explain everything. He looked stunned, trying to process it all. So, this whole time? You didn't need our help? You're rich? Very, son. And I think it's time everyone knew it. His eyes met mine, filled with confusion, sadness, and maybe a little anger. What are you going to do? That depends on you, Leo. What do you want me to do? Continue the charade? Reveal everything? What part of this is most important to you? He was silent for a long moment, stirring the food on his plate. When he finally spoke, his voice was low but firm. I want the truth, all of it. Not just for me or for Chloe, but for everyone. I smiled, feeling a mix of pride and relief. My son still had the backbone Richard and I tried to instill in him. Then that's what we'll do. But first, we need to discuss your situation with Chloe. What do you mean? I mean, we need to be clear on one thing. The company shares I'm transferring to you are not to save your wife's failing business or to pay off debts accumulated through reckless decisions. I saw a flash of irritation in his eyes, followed by resignation. He knew I was right. I understand, perfect. Now, let's go upstairs. The lawyer should be arriving, and we have a lot to discuss about your future and the future of your marriage. I picked up my purse and stood, feeling the strength of the woman I truly was flow back through my veins. The charade was over. It was time to get to work. Leo's eyes scanned the documents in front of him. Financial reports, stock certificates, property deeds, patents. His parents' entire life's work laid out in staggering numbers. So, said Mr. Ruiz, our longtime family lawyer finally closing his folder, the shares have been officially transferred to your name, Mr. Vance. As of now, you are the owner of 30% of Apex Innovations, making you a minority shareholder but still a very wealthy man. Leo swallowed hard, looking at me. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet, I replied. There's more. I asked Mr. Ruiz to leave us alone. As soon as the door closed, I opened my purse and took out another set of documents. What's this? Leo asked. Reports from a private investigator I hired 2 years ago. He frowned. You hired someone to investigate me? Not you, I said, pushing the papers toward him. Chloe. His expression hardened. Why would you do that? Because I needed to be sure of who she really was before I entrusted her with any part of our family's legacy. Leo hesitated, his hands hovering over the documents. I could see the conflict in him, torn between loyalty to his wife and curiosity about what I had discovered. I won't force you to read it, son, but I think you should know who you're married to, especially now that you have so much at stake. Finally, he pulled the papers closer and began to read. I watched his face as he absorbed the information, first confusion, then disbelief, and finally, something that looked like deep, soul-crushing anguish. This can't be true, he muttered. It's all documented with photographic evidence and sworn statements, all verifiable. What Leo was reading was Chloe's complete history before she met him. Her real name wasn't Chloe Foster, but Clara Bellwether. Her 2 previous marriages, both to men of means. The trail of debt she'd left behind. The parents from dinner last night were, in fact, paid acquaintances hired to bolster her fake affluent background. But the worst part was the evidence of her current infidelity. Photos of her entering a motel called The Hideaway with Julian Croft, her partner in the boutique she was so proud of. The same Julian who often had dinner at their house, introduced as just a colleague. Why would she do this? Leo asked, his voice choked. We didn't have that much money, but she thought you would someday, I explained gently. She did her research before she met you. She knew about Apex Innovations, about your father and me. She probably assumed you would inherit everything. When your father died and I became poor, it ruined her plans, but she was already too deep in. the marriage, the boutique you helped finance. So she stayed, hoping that maybe there was still some money hidden somewhere. Leo pushed the papers away as if physical contact with them hurt him. So now what? What do we do now? That's up to you, son. Do you still love her, knowing all this? He closed his eyes, running his hands over his face. When he opened them again, I saw a determination that reminded me so much of his father it almost hurt. No, I don't love the person in those papers. Maybe I never really loved her, just the idea of what I thought she was. I nodded, understanding completely. Then I think it's time to confront her with the truth. All of it. Leo nodded slowly. But how? At that moment, I smiled. The confident smile of a CEO accustomed to solving complex problems. I have a plan. 3 hours later, we were parking in front of Leo's house. The house I had helped him buy as a wedding gift, though he thought he'd gotten the loan on his own merit. He had called Chloe, telling her they needed to talk about her behavior last night. She agreed, probably expecting him to bring his problematic mother over to apologize. Little did she know she was about to face not the frail widow she thought she knew, but Eleanor Vance in all her glory. CEO, multi-millionaire, and now a very, very angry mother-in-law. I walked into that house a completely different person than the one Chloe was used to seeing. My impeccable suit, my upright posture, confidence radiating from every step. I could see the shock in her eyes as soon as I crossed the threshold. "Ellie? What happened to you?" she asked, her eyes scanning my transformed appearance. "What happened is I got tired of lying, Chloe. Or should I call you Clara?" Her face went pale instantly. Leo walked in right behind me, carrying the folder with the documents. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, looking nervously from me to Leo. "Why don't we sit down?" I suggested, gesturing to the living room. "We have a lot to discuss." She followed us hesitantly, perching on the edge of the sofa like an animal ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. "Chloe," I began, settling comfortably into the armchair as if I owned the place, which technically I did. "Do you remember what you said to me last night about me being a leech who needs to get a job?" She swallowed hard. "Look, about that. I was stressed. I had too much to drink." No, I interrupted calmly. "You were honest for the first time. You said exactly what you think of me. And I appreciate honesty, I really do. That's why I decided to return the favor." Leo opened the folder and began to spread documents across the coffee table. "What is that?" Chloe asked, her tone now wary. "This," I said, "is the story of my life. Or at least, the part you don't know." I took the first document, a copy of a Forbes magazine cover with my picture and the headline, "The Invisible Queen of Software Security." That's me. 5 years ago, I was on the list of the 50 most powerful women in business. I pushed another document towards her, and this is the current financial statement for Apex Innovations, the company Richard and I founded 35 years ago, which is now worth over $15 million. Chloe picked up the papers with trembling hands, her eyes wide with disbelief. That can't be true. You live in that tiny apartment. You wear secondhand clothes. You don't have a car. All part of a social experiment, let's say. I wanted to see who really cared about me, not my money or my status. I leaned forward. "You failed that test spectacularly, I must say." She looked at Leo, searching for some kind of denial, some indication that this was a cruel joke. He just stared back at her, his face a mask of disappointment. "Leo? You knew this?" she asked, her voice a whisper. "I just found out this morning," he answered coldly. "But that's not all I found out." He pushed another set of documents toward her, the private investigator's reports. Chloe looked at the first page and turned even paler. "This is an invasion of privacy," she exclaimed, trying to muster some indignation. "Not when it's a legitimate investigation to verify fraud," I replied calmly. "Fraud like pretending to be Chloe Foster from a wealthy family, when you're actually Clara Bellwether from Newark. Fraud like hiring acquaintances to pose as your parents. Fraud like hiding 2 previous marriages and the debts you left behind. She stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do, Leo said, his voice firmer than I had heard it in years. You have to listen to this, and you have to explain it, especially the photos with Julian. Chloe's face went from pale to red in seconds. Are you spying on me now? Following me? It didn't take much effort, I replied. You weren't exactly discreet. The Hideaway Motel every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Really, Chloe, you could have at least varied the routine. She collapsed back onto the sofa, suddenly looking much smaller. What do you want? Money. Leo laughed bitterly. I just found out I own 30% of a $15 million company. I don't think I need your money. So it's revenge? She asked, looking at me directly. You planned all this to humiliate me. No, I answered truthfully. I planned it to protect my son and the legacy Richard and I built. You were just an unforeseen obstacle. Leo leaned forward, looking her straight in the eye. I want a divorce, Chloe, immediately, and I want you out of this house. Today. You can't just kick me out, she protested. I have rights. I cleared my throat softly. Actually, the house is in my name. You were a guest here, technically speaking, a guest who is no longer welcome. She looked from one to the other, the realization finally sinking in. She was trapped. And the boutique? She asked, her voice small. It's all I have. It's all you have because it's all you managed to squeeze out of me, Leo replied. But you can keep it. I'll transfer my share to you. Consider it a pre-divorce settlement. But only if you leave today and agree to an uncontested divorce. Chloe stood up again, this time more slowly. The calculation was visible in her eyes, weighing her options, cutting her losses. Finally, she gave a stiff nod. I need a few hours to pack. You have one, I replied. We'll be here to make sure you only take what's yours. She shot me a look of pure hatred before heading upstairs, her heavy footsteps echoing through the house. Leo and I remained silent until we heard the bedroom door slam shut. An hour later, Chloe came downstairs dragging 2 large suitcases. Her face was tear-stained, but her eyes burned with rage. Leo and I stood in the living room, silently witnessing her departure. You're going to regret this, she said, looking straight at me. Nobody likes being lied to. An interesting observation, I replied calmly, coming from someone who built her entire life on lies. She turned to Leo. 3 years, Leo. 3 years together. And you choose your lying mother over me? Leo stood up slowly. I could see the pain on his face, but also the resolve. I'm not choosing between you and my mother, Chloe. I'm choosing the truth. And the truth is, you never loved me. Only what you thought I could give you. She laughed bitterly. And what did you give me? A failing boutique and a mediocre life with a pathetic mother-in-law. I should have trusted my gut when I found out your parents were just regular executives, not the millionaires I was hoping for. There's the irony, I commented. We were exactly what you were looking for. You just weren't smart enough to see past the surface. Chloe grabbed her suitcases and walked to the door. On the threshold, she turned one last time. This isn't over. Actually, it is, I said, rising to stand beside my son. And remember, Chloe, unlike you, I have the resources to ensure you never come near our family again. One call from me, and you'll find out just how small the world can be when you have the right connections. The door slammed shut and she was finally gone. Leo sank onto the sofa, covering his face with his hands. You're right, he said quietly. You lied to me for 3 years. I sat down next to him, giving him space but close enough to show support. Yes, I did. And a part of me will always regret that. But you lied to me too, Leo. He lifted his head, confused. How? You pretended you didn't see how she treated me. You pretended everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. You allowed her to belittle me repeatedly without ever mounting a real defense. It was harsh, but it was necessary. In that moment, we weren't just mother and son. We were two people who had hurt each other and needed to deal with the consequences. "You're right," he admitted after a long silence. "I should have defended you. I should have asked more questions, watched more closely. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm sorry too, son." I took his hand in mine. "So where does this leave us?" He took a deep breath. "Honestly, I don't know. I need time to process all this. My marriage is over. I just found out I'm a millionaire, and my mother is actually a powerhouse CEO who's been testing me for 3 years. It's a lot." I nodded, understanding completely. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready to talk." I stood to leave, but he held my hand. "Are you going back to that little apartment?" I smiled slightly. "No, son. That chapter is over. It's time for Eleanor Vance to return to the world." That night, I returned to my real home, the penthouse overlooking the city that had been my secret sanctuary for 3 years. As I poured myself a glass of wine and watched the city lights, my phone rang. It was Marcus, my assistant. "Mrs. Vance, how did the meeting go?" "Exactly as we expected," I replied. "Chloe is out of Leo's life. He knows everything now." "And how did he react?" I sighed. "He's processing. He needs time." "Understandable." "And the office? Are you ready to officially return?" I took a sip of wine, contemplating the question. For 3 years, I had run Apex Innovations remotely, participating in meetings via video conference, making strategic decisions under the radar, keeping my true identity hidden, even from the newest employees. Yes, I decided, it's time for Eleanor Vance to rise from the ashes. The next morning, I dressed like the executive I had always been. Impeccable black suit, discreet but elegant heels, professional makeup. When I walked into the Apex Innovations building for the first time in 3 years, I could feel the ripple of surprise. The receptionist, a young woman hired during my absence, looked at me hesitantly. "Can I help you, ma'am?" I smiled. "Eleanor Vance to see Marcus Bennett, please." Her eyes widened. "Eleanor Vance? The founder? The one and only." She quickly picked up the phone, her hands trembling slightly. "Mr. Bennett, and Eleanor Vance is in the lobby to see you." "Yes, sir. Right away." In less than a minute, Marcus appeared in the lobby, his face lit up with a genuine smile. "Eleanor, welcome back." He gave me a brief hug, a break in protocol that showed the depth of our professional friendship. Then he offered me his arm. "Ready to cause a stir?" "More than ready," I replied. As we walked through the corridors, employees stopped to stare. Some of the older ones recognized me immediately, their faces reflecting shock and then joy. The newer ones looked confused, probably trying to figure out why a stranger was causing such a commotion. Marcus led me straight to the main conference room, where I knew the executive board would be gathered for their weekly meeting. When we opened the doors, the conversation stopped abruptly. 10 faces turned in our direction, some familiar, others new. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus announced with evident pride, "allow me to reintroduce Eleanor Vance, founder and CEO of Apex Innovations." The silence was deafening for a moment, followed by an explosion of voices and chairs being pushed back as people rose to greet me. Roberto Chen, our CFO for 15 years, was the first to approach me. "Eleanor, my God, you're back. Marcus told us you'd return eventually, but after so long." Sarah Jenkins, the COO, and one of the few who knew the truth, smiled discreetly. "Welcome back, boss. We missed you." For nearly an hour, I was reintroduced to my own company, meeting new executives, reconnecting with old colleagues, hearing enthusiastic updates on projects I had secretly been monitoring for years. Finally, Marcus clapped his hands to get everyone's attention. "I believe we have a meeting to continue, and Mrs. Vance has a lot of updates to receive. Shall we all be seated?" I took my place at the head of the table, the chair that had remained symbolically empty during my absence. Marcus had prepared me well. I knew all the details of the current operations, but I pretended to be learning some things for the first time. 2 hours later, when the meeting ended, I stayed in the room with Marcus and Sarah, the only two who knew the whole truth. "How does it feel to be back?" Sarah asked. "Like I never left, really," I answered honestly. "I followed everything so closely that I sometimes forget I wasn't physically present." Marcus poured us coffee. "And Leo? How is he handling everything? He needs space, as we expected, but he'll be fine. He's Richard's son. He has more strength than he imagines." "And what about Chloe?" Sarah asked, her voice hardening at the mention of the name. Sarah had helped me investigate Chloe's past and knew the full extent of her manipulation. Out of our lives, I hope. But something tells me we haven't seen the last of her. I took a sip of my coffee, thoughtful. People like Chloe don't accept defeat easily. "Are you worried?" Marcus asked. "Not worried. Prepared." Chloe's response came faster than I expected. The next morning, as I was having coffee in my penthouse, I got a call from Leo. "Mom, have you seen social media today?" "No, dear. What happened?" "Chloe, well, I think you should just see for yourself." I opened my laptop and quickly found Chloe's profile. There it was, in large, bold letters. The truth about Eleanor Vance, how a manipulative CEO deceived her own family for years. Below it, a long, distorted version of the story. How I had abandoned my son after his father's death. How I had faked poverty to test people's loyalty. How I had destroyed her marriage out of pure malice. The post already had hundreds of shares. "Leo," I said calmly, "don't worry about it." "Not worry? Mom, she's slandering you publicly, and you think I didn't foresee this?" I smiled, though he couldn't see me. "Remember when I said people like Chloe don't accept defeat easily? I was counting on this." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Marcus is already in touch with our legal department. Defamation is a crime, son. And Chloe just publicly exposed herself, but people are going to believe her. Some might, for a short time. But the truth has a way of prevailing." I hung up and immediately called Marcus. In less than an hour, the public relations machine of Apex Innovations was in full swing. An official statement was issued confirming my return to the company's leadership after a sabbatical period to deal with the grief of losing my husband. Interviews were scheduled with respected business journalists. The true story, or at least the version we chose to share, was being carefully disseminated. At the same time, our lawyers sent a formal letter to Chloe, demanding an immediate retraction of her defamatory claims and threatening legal action if she continued. Her response was to delete the original post, only to replace it with another, more cautious in its accusations, but equally venomous in its tone. "She's not going to stop," Sarah commented when we met in my office to discuss the situation. "She's been publicly humiliated and lost everything she built on lies. Revenge is all she has left." "Then we're going to take that away from her too," I replied, my voice quiet but firm. "It's time for Plan B." Plan B wasn't something I had planned to use. It was aggressive, ruthless, and best left as a last resort. But Chloe had escalated the situation to a level that required a definitive response. "Are you sure about this, Eleanor?" Marcus asked, looking concerned. "Once we start, we can't go back." "I'm sure," I replied. She had her chance to walk away quietly. Now she's going to find out why Richard used to call me the Ice Queen in negotiations. Marcus nodded, understanding the reference. During the rise of Apex Innovations, I had developed a reputation in business circles. The woman whose expression never faltered during tough negotiations, who never showed her hand, and who always, always won. "I'll make the calls," he said, getting up to leave. "One thing, Marcus," I called out, pausing him at the door. "Inform Leo first. He needs to be prepared for what's about to happen, of course." I met Leo that night at the restaurant in the Astoria Grand, now our unofficial meeting spot. He looked better than he had at our last meeting, calmer, more centered, though I could see he was still carrying the weight of betrayal. "Mom," he greeted me with a hug, something that hadn't happened in a long time. "You looked dazzling." I smiled, discreetly adjusting the sapphire brooch that complemented my navy suit. "Thank you, dear. It's good to be myself again." We sat down and ordered, the conversation flowing naturally about trivial matters. Only when our main courses were served did I address the real reason for our meeting. "Leo, I called you here tonight because I need to warn you about something that's going to happen tomorrow." He stopped eating, placing his fork carefully on the plate. "This has to do with Chloe, doesn't it?" "Yes." Her social media posts are continuing despite the legal warnings. She's given interviews to 2 local gossip blogs, making increasingly absurd accusations. Leo sighed. "I saw. She's saying you manipulated me with money to turn me against her, that this whole private investigation story was fabricated." "Exactly. And things are going to get worse before they get better." "What do you mean?" I took a sip of water, choosing my words carefully. "Tomorrow, several media outlets will receive information about Chloe. Her real history, her previous marriages, the debts, the frauds. You're going to expose her publicly?" There was a note of concern in his voice. "Not directly. The information will come from seemingly unrelated sources. Ex-husbands who have finally decided to speak out, creditors looking for unpaid debts, people she has harmed over the years, all coming forward at once." Leo frowned. "That sounds calculated." "It is." "Do you think I'm the only person she's ever deceived, Leo? I've been in contact with her other victims for years. People who, like us, were manipulated by Chloe, or Clara, as she was known then. How long have you been planning this?" "Since I first became suspicious of her about 2 years ago. But I always hoped I wouldn't need to use this strategy. I gave her a chance to leave our lives in peace." Leo was silent for a long moment, absorbing my words. Finally, he spoke. "Won't this completely destroy her?" "Probably," I admitted, "but the alternative is to let her continue spreading lies about us, about the company, about our family legacy. Are you willing to live with that?" He looked out the restaurant window, at the city lights. "No," he said finally, "I'm not. She made her choice. Now she has to live with the consequences." In that moment, I felt a surge of pride. Leo was finally breaking free from Chloe's influence, reclaiming his strength. "There's one more thing you should know," I added. "I've hired security for you just as a precaution. You think she'd be a physical danger? Not directly. But desperate people sometimes do desperate things. I'd rather not take the risk." He nodded, understanding. "And you? Will you have security too?" "My dear," I smiled. "I've had security since your father died. You just never noticed." The next morning, the storm broke. As planned, several media outlets published stories about the real Chloe Foster, revealing her past as Clara Bellwether, detailing her previous marriages to wealthy men, and exposing her debts and frauds. Ex-husbands gave interviews describing how they had been manipulated and abandoned as soon as their money ran out. Former employers reported on embezzlement schemes. Even the acquaintances she'd hired to pose as her parents came forward, seemingly motivated by remorse. Leo's phone wouldn't stop ringing. My phone, on the other hand, remained relatively quiet. Around noon, Chloe finally called me. I was in my office reviewing contracts. "Eleanor Vance speaking," I answered, my voice professional and neutral. "You manipulative witch!" Chloe's voice trembled with rage. "You did this, didn't you? You orchestrated all of this. Chloe, I'm in the middle of an important meeting. Could you clarify what exactly you're accusing me of? Don't play dumb. The news, the interviews, everyone suddenly talking about my past. This has your name written all over it." I paused, a calculated beat of silence. "An interesting theory. Do you have any proof to support it? Or is this just another one of your baseless accusations, like the ones you've been spreading about me on social media?" "You're going to pay for this," she hissed. "You're going to what, exactly?" I interrupted, my voice finally hardening. "Continue to defame me? Spread more lies about my family? Or perhaps you're planning something more drastic? What? Chloe, let me be very clear. You are being monitored. Every move, every communication. I have a top-tier security team protecting my family and my company, and I have the best lawyers in the country ready to respond to any further attempt by you to harm us. Silence on the other end of the line. Now I'm going to make you an offer, and I suggest you consider it very seriously. Stop the public attacks. Accept the uncontested divorce. Disappear from our lives forever. In return, I will make the necessary calls to have the stories about you gradually fade from the news cycle. You can do that? Believe me, I can do much more than that. So what will it be, Chloe? War or peace? Another long silence. Then a defeated sigh. Peace. Excellent choice. My lawyers will be in touch today with the terms of the agreement. And Chloe, if you break this agreement, what you saw today will be just the beginning. I hung up without waiting for a response. For a moment, I allowed myself to feel the weight of the battle, the exhaustion, the regret that it had come to this, but only for a moment. Then I called Leo. It's done, I informed him. She accepted the terms. Just like that? The surprise was evident in his voice. People like Chloe are only brave as long as they think they have the upper hand. When they realize they are truly outmatched, they retreat quickly. So it's over? For real? I believe so, I replied, though I'll keep the security in place for now, just in case. Thank you, Mom, he said, his voice lighter than I'd heard it in weeks. Not just for handling this, but for saving me from her. Always, my dear. Always. In the following days, the headlines about Chloe gradually subsided. As promised, I made a few strategic calls, requesting that certain articles be archived, that certain interviews not be rebroadcast. I didn't completely erase her public disgrace. That would be impossible in the digital age, but I reduced the impact. Chloe kept her side of the bargain. She signed the divorce papers without contest, accepting the generous terms Leo offered. A week after everything settled, Leo invited me to dinner at his new apartment. I'm starting over, he explained as he poured me wine. New home, new memories. I'm happy for you, I replied sincerely. I'm still processing everything, he continued. The last 3 years, the money, the company. Chloe, it's going to take time. I know, I agreed. Betrayal isn't something you get over overnight. It's not just her betrayal, he said, his eyes meeting mine directly. It's also what you did. I put my glass down, preparing for the conversation I knew we needed to have. I know I hurt you, Leo. It was never my intention, but it happened anyway. And I am so sorry for that. Why didn't you trust me? Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning? I sighed deeply. After your father died, I was lost. Not just without my partner in life and business, but without my moral compass. Richard was always the one who knew instinctively who to trust. I was the strategist. He was the judge of character. When he was gone, I realized how much I depended on that gift of his. And then, when I started seeing how people around me changed, I grew paranoid. I started to doubt everyone. Even me, he finished. Especially you, I admitted. Not because I doubted your love, but because I knew you always see the best in people, even those who don't deserve it. And I was afraid someone like Chloe could exploit that quality. And I proved your fears right, he said bitterly. No, Leo. You proved you're your father's son. Generous, loving, always willing to give people a chance. That's not a flaw. It's a strength. The world needs more people like you. My mistake was not trusting you enough to share my concerns. We should have faced this together, as a family. Instead, I created this elaborate test, this charade, and I ended up hurting the person I wanted most to protect. Leo stood up and came to sit beside me on the sofa. So what do we do now? He asked. How do we move forward? With honesty, I replied simply. No more secrets, no more tests. Just a mother and son, navigating this new chapter together. He took my hand, squeezing it gently. I like that. We talked for hours that night about the past, the future, the plans for the company. It was the most genuine conversation we'd had in years. When I finally said goodbye, he hugged me at the door. I know what you did, as complicated as it was, came from a place of love, he said, and that's what matters in the end. With tears in my eyes, I hugged him back. We're giving each other a second chance, Mom, both of us. 6 months passed. Life took on a new rhythm, more authentic and rewarding than I could have imagined. Apex Innovations thrived. Leo found his place in the company, not as a reluctant heir, but as someone determined to learn the business from the ground up. He insisted on starting in a junior position in the marketing department. I want to earn my place here, he explained. His commitment earned him the respect of his colleagues, and in just 6 months, he was promoted twice. As for Chloe, she had sold the boutique and moved to another state. My relationship with Leo deepened. We had dinner together weekly. On one of those nights, he brought up an unexpected topic. I met someone, he said, a slight blush on his cheeks. His name is Daniel. He's a history professor at the university. I was momentarily surprised, not that he was interested in a man, but that he had never mentioned it. Leo, that's wonderful, I replied sincerely. How did you meet? He visibly relaxed. At a lecture he gave. We just started talking. He doesn't know about Apex, about the money, any of it. As far as he knows, I'm just a regular marketing manager. Ah, testing the waters first? I asked, understanding his caution. Something like that. After Chloe. I just want to be sure this time. I nodded, feeling a deep understanding. It wasn't my exact test, but the principle was the same. The search for authenticity. What about you? He asked. It's been a long time since Dad. Have you ever thought about meeting someone? The question took me by surprise. Honestly, no. Richard was one of a kind. It's hard to imagine that with someone else. I know Dad would want you to be happy, Leo said softly. He always said you were the strongest woman he knew, but also the loneliest before you found him. I felt unexpected tears welling up. He said that? All the time. He told me how you met. You, the brilliant young woman who intimidated all the other computer science students. He was the only one with the courage to ask you for coffee. I smiled at the memory. He said my intimidation was just a defense mechanism, that inside I was terrified of not being good enough. And was he right? Completely, I admitted. Your father had that irritating gift of seeing right through people. Leo smiled. Like you with Chloe? Not quite. It took me years to develop that skill, and I was never as good as Richard. For him, it was natural. In the weeks that followed, I dove back into my executive routine. One afternoon, I received a surprising call from Patricia Klein, an old friend who had vanished after Richard's death. Eleanor, it's Patricia. I saw the feature on you in Forbes. Your return. It's amazing. Thank you, I said, my voice neutral. Look, she said, taking a deep breath, I was awful to you after Richard died. When you moved, when it seemed like you'd lost everything, I just disappeared. The truth is, I was scared. Seeing you, always so strong, seemingly lose it all made me realize how fragile my own security was. And instead of helping a friend, I backed away out of selfish fear. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I am deeply, deeply sorry. I thought for a moment. Her apology felt genuine. Thank you for calling, Patricia, I said finally. It means a lot. Really? I know I have no right to ask, but maybe we could get coffee sometime. I considered it. I think I'd like that, I replied, but on one condition. Total honesty from now on. No more masks. I could hear the smile in her voice. It's a deal. I received more calls like that, and for each, I applied the same standard. Those who admitted their faults were given a second chance. My social circle was being rebuilt, this time on a foundation of quality over quantity. A few weeks later, Leo told me Daniel knew about the company. He said he suspected there was more to the story. Leo smiled. Apparently, he Googled my name. He He was just waiting for me to trust him enough to tell him. The following week, I met Daniel. He was a tall, kind-eyed man with a contagious laugh. He treated Leo with a respect and affection that was impossible to fake, and he treated me not as a CEO or a millionaire, but simply as Leo's mother. We talked for hours, and I felt that sense of recognition Richard always described, the instinct that this was a good, genuine person. You know, Daniel said over coffee, your social experiment confirms something I've always suspected. Most people lead two lives, the public one and the private one. People show the world what they think will be admired. Few are truly authentic in all aspects of their lives. I looked at Leo, who was watching Daniel with clear admiration. For the first time in years, I felt a lightness in my heart. My son was finding his way. Our relationship was stronger than ever. Old friendships were being rebuilt on solid ground. The charade was over, and in its place, something far more valuable was emerging. A life of honesty, without masks, without tests, just the truth in all its beautiful complexity. If you like this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments what part left you speechless.